Welcome back, folks. This time we're going to be talking about the last couple objects on our list, and the first one is draw a curved path. Honestly, it lives up to its name. That's what it's for. It's a draw a curved path. Now, what you're going to first do is you're going to click on that tool, and then you're going to draw out your not so curved path. So you're going to draw out basically your rough path shape, if you will. And you'll notice on my screen here, I have some pretty hard, sharp corners in there. And so that's what we're going to kind of explore, how we can turn those into a very curved, swooping line. Now, you can just draw out, a partial line like I've done here, but you notice that it wants me to kind of keep clicking and keep drawing out, which I can do if I want to, or if I want to reconnect to my first point. If I move my mouse back over to where my very first click was to begin my object here, there's a little ground circle that if I click on that, it will basically close my object from beginning to end. Or if you have something you don't want to close, you can also simply hit the escape key on your keyboard, and that will stop you from drawing. Then you can go back and click on this again, rough path that we've drawn so far. Now, once you have this kind of thing drawn out, you can look over at your sidebar and you will notice that effectively you have the same options that we've had on all the other object stuff. You can kind of delete points, you can add points, you can change the exact size and shape and center and rotate and make it transparent or not, or change the line styles or add fills if applicable. Again, all same stuff. So I'm not going to really rehash that because we've gone over that very thoroughly in the last episode. But on this guy, what you can do is, again, we've drawn out this very rough shape. So you might be like, well, your curved path does not look so curved, and you are absolutely right. So what we do is we go back to any of the little purple squares that indicate one of our corners or our kind of sharp curves or whatever, and we go click on one. And when we do, and this is quite small, I wish they made them a little bit larger so it was easier to kind of find them, but there are two little green circles that pop up just below, one to the right and one slightly to the left of that little corner piece. These are what you will click on and drag with your mouse to adjust the curvature of your line. So I'm going to grab this one, I'm going to bring my mouse kind of up and over to the right, and you'll notice that the segment of line on this side of my kind of corner is curving wherever I move my mouse. So I can change the curvature of this line in any way, shape, or form we want. So I'm going to pull it out a little bit, something like that, and now I have a nice curved path there. I have another little corner down below which is also very sharp, and go click on that as well and do the same thing. Grab that and I can change the curvature of the line there to make sure everything is just nice and swoopy how I want my curved path to be. Anyway, I'd like to keep going and finish the rest of my curved path there and make it, the whole thing really just beautiful and nice swooping rounded edges and curves and stuff like that. But I'm going to go ahead and stop this example here. Now you might be like, well, okay, well, what do you use this for? And that's a valid question, I think. I think probably some people have an idea and be like, oh, I needed a tool just like that in this situation, right? In which case you probably already know what you're going to do with it. But also, one of the things you may want to do, and we're going to get into this actually in a couple episodes here, is using TactileView's graphing tools. One of the things you can do is simply just create a blank braille labeled graph, and you could draw your own graph on it. And so if you have especially like a really complicated graph, or possibly something that is just complicated, TactileView does have some graphing tools. Again, not to kind of totally go over graphing in this episode because that's going to be for another one, but the graphing tool is great, but it is limited to kind of your algebraic stuff. If you get into some of the really advanced math, you might find that its graphing capabilities are not super great into more like the calculus level stuff or physics level stuff or something like that you may need to graph. So in those type of situations, you could use something like this to hand draw or help draw out very detailed graphics. So that's usually what my go-to use for this draw curved path. But of course there are many reasons that you might need a curved path, and so this is the draw curved path tool. So we'll go ahead and get rid of that, and we're going to briefly cover this last thing, which is draw filled dot. This is not very interesting. There is not much to it. You click on it and you click and it draws you a filled dot. It is that simple. You can go through and you can label it, and you can add more filled dots if you want. You can move it up in the layering system and adjust the size and position of it and things like that. If I want it to be a little bit smaller or a little bit larger, I can adjust that with the position and size option. just like we can with all the rest of the objects. I could fuse it with my bitmap if I want to erase on it or something like that. But all it does is draw out a fill dot. So the main thing I use this tool for, and now you might have other uses, but the main thing I use this tool for is, again, I was referring just a minute ago to the blank graph or blank coordinate system that you can create using TactileView. And one of the things that you sometimes have to do is you have to plot points on it. And so I use these circles because I can adjust the size of them to indicate my plotted point on my graph. So that's one use for you. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Just those two kind of last object tools that were kind of sort of outliers, so I didn't want to include them with the last video. But nothing too crazy, nothing too wild here, but a couple neat little tools that can, in certain situations, can be quite helpful. We'll see you in the next one.